Well, while we get started and allow everybody to call in, I'll just tell you a little bit about the cluster initiative. So the cluster initiative, the UAS cluster initiative is, we're contracted by the Small Business Administration in Washington, D.C., and we are 14 clusters around the country. Each cluster has a unique geographic focus and an industry sector focus. So we are focused primarily on Oklahoma and Kansas, although it is a national effort. And we are also focused on unmanned aerial systems, but that also includes pretty much anything that's autonomous. While we do focus on the aerial portion, it's anything autonomous. So before we get started today, I'll just point you to an event that we're having. It's our largest, and it's the UAS Tech Forum. It's taking place September 16th and 17th in Oklahoma City. And I'll take you to our website here. I encourage you after the webinar today to go ahead and poke around on the site. Some of the companies that we'll be talking to today and in our continuing webinar series will be at this event. So we really hope that you will take a look and consider attending. So we're very excited. This will be our 7th annual UAS Tech Forum, as you can see here. So my name is Amanda Radovic. I'm the program manager of the Cluster Initiative. And today we are having this webinar that we've entitled COVID Operations. So how drone companies are responding to help stop the corona pandemic. And it's a very timely topic, and it's something that is near and dear to us as we all try to navigate through these very difficult and interesting times. And so we're very fortunate today to have a couple companies that have been able to pivot very quickly in response to what's going on. We're just going to kind of jump right into this, and I'm going to give our companies a chance to talk a little bit about what their companies are doing in this space. And so we'll go ahead and get started from there. So the companies joining us today, we have joining us is the CEO of Sentinel Robotics Solutions, Peter Bale. We have Cratley Epperson of Vigilant Aerospace Systems. And we have Dr. Saravan Kumar of MaxQ. And Dr. Kumar and Cratley have two separate companies and two separate technologies that they are working in cooperation with. So we'll learn a little bit more about that. But right now I'm going to turn it to Peter. So this is Peter Bale with Sentinel Robotics to talk a little bit about your company and what you're doing in response to COVID. And then we'll jump into a little bit more detail.
Okay, thanks, Amanda. Can you hear me okay?
We can, yeah, and thank you. So Peter, you're joining us audio today, no video. So just for those of you out there.
Yeah. So thanks for hosting us. So Sentinel Robotics, a small company, started in 2012. We are located on the eastern shore of Virginia and do a lot of local work across the 3 states of the Delmarva Peninsula. So Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia are our primary areas that we operate. We're a UAS company by nature. We've been dabbling in various form factors over the years and provide a lot of engineering consulting services and rapid prototyping, different things like that. And then we've pivoted, as you said, in another unmanned technology, not as sexy as the flying stuff. So, you know, we'll caveat that first, but very much an adaptation of a product that we've had you know, great success with different federal agencies in supplying them with what they need for access control to ranges and rocket facilities and different things like that. So I've been in the UAS industry since about 99. I've had the joy of watching the industry unfold over, you know, the last couple of decades, and I've been around quite a while, worked with all the larges, the Boeings, the In-Situs, the AAI, the Textrons, all of those. And I've had the pleasure of being to Oklahoma a couple of times for the tech forums. I think I was there for one of the first ones when it first started a number of years ago. So that's us in a nutshell, and I'll turn it over back to you, Amanda.
Great, thank you. So Saravan and Kumar, you have separate companies, but you are working together because your technologies are complementary, especially to this effort. So greatly, if you want to talk a little bit about yours first and sort of what the application is, and Saravan, you can talk about yours as well.
Sure. Well, I'll talk about, there's a video that you're going to show in a few minutes, and so I'll sort of talk through that video when you show it. But just to give a quick background, I'm Cratley Epperson. I'm the CEO of Vigilant Aerospace. We're headquartered in Oklahoma City. And it's a company that provides detect and avoid and airspace management systems focused on unmanned aircraft safety, particularly for beyond visual line of sight flying of larger commercial drones and smaller commercial drones, and providing the safety and the detect and avoid systems that are required to get authorizations to do that. The company is based on started with a NASA patent and is primarily a software company working on solving that problem, which is really important for integrating drones into the national airspace.
Thank you. So Saravan, tell us a little bit about MaxQ.
Sure. So good afternoon, everybody. I'm Saravan Kumar. I'm the CEO of MaxQ. The company is about 7-8 years old company. We are essentially a temperature-controlled packaging company that provides intelligent packaging systems for moving temperature-sensitive products like blood, vaccines, pharmaceuticals. Our packaging system is today used in over 450 hospitals here in the United States and several blood centers, US, Canada, and Ireland. Essentially, we provide optimized packaging systems that can move blood products safely from a donor all the way to a recipient in a hospital. And more recently, we started promoting and selling IoT integrated packaging systems, which are self-aware, they are self-intelligent, they understand what the location is, what the temperature of the product is inside, and specifically we're deploying those in EMT services, level 1 transport helicopters and in EMT trucks. When they go to pick up the patients, they can safely carry blood on board. And that's our natural evolution into the drone space, because the packages, when we designed for the EMT space, we optimized and built them in such a way that it can be mounted on a quadcopter platform or even a fixed wing platform. So we can start leveraging some of the up and coming technologies and capabilities from the drone sector. So we're not a drone company, but we're a packaging company evolving and building packages that can be safely delivered using drone modalities.
So question for all of you, at what point during this, I mean, the last several months have been transformative into all of our lives. At what point did you decide we have something that could help with the COVID relief effort? And I mean, what spurred that conversation?
So I can go first. For us, it was a direct impact. We service a whole bunch of hospitals and diagnostic labs across the country to move blood products. We saw the first hit when Seattle started reporting cases. Some of our hospitals that are using our packaging for moving blood, they had to quickly develop protocols for, okay, how do I treat COVID positive patient? How do I handle samples? How do I handle those blood products? And we were able to bring direct solutions to them to figure out how to sterilize these boxes, how to safely move the specimens in temperature. That was like the first immediate thing that we had to react to. And then obviously, just like every company out there, we had to make a lot of operational changes in-house. So for the safety of our employees, so we can continue to provide our services and products through these stressful times. And slowly, when a lot of the conversations started shifting towards testing and how do we ramp up testing across the country, which we are still trying to figure out how to ramp up testing. And you see this swing going from sort of this nasal swab-based testing that are this PCR type testing to antibody testing. You're going to have more sensitive samples that are moving. And to us, when we realize that that's where the trend is going to go towards, a lot of our packaging solutions can be used for moving those blood specimens in a much more safer manner. So we took our solutions and we started positioning our products, kind of like quickly pivot and then reconfigure our products so it can be used for moving those specimens. And that's where the collaboration with Oklahoma State University and Vigilant Aerospace came in, because those exact packages are also drone mountable. And we wanted to be able to integrate it into some drone platforms and then try it out. And as you can imagine now, with the test capabilities, or we're trying to ramp up test capabilities. At-home testing could be a phenomenal solution right now. And so trying to set up these remote drive-through testing, at-home testing could be fantastic. So for us, that was a pivotal moment when we realized, hey, what we have, we can actually reconfigure and we can help scale up testing.
And then you sought out sort of the partners that you needed to, let's say, mount it on something aerial and get the infrastructure that you needed so that you could push this forward. And I think working with the university, of course, that was sort of naturally lent itself to some of this. And so Crately, you get called in, you get a call from Saravan, you get a call from OSU. How are you able to pivot so quickly and you did some testing last week at the Oklahoma State University campus there, where they have an amazing testing facility. How were you able to do that so quickly?
So, yeah, Amanda, the technology that we provide, particularly in drones in general, are great tools for disaster response. You mentioned earlier Hurricane Harvey. We were one of those companies that was called out, and we provided airspace safety, which included detecting and tracking manned aircraft so that drone operators who were flying damage assessment flights after the hurricane all over the Gulf Coast area of Texas could fly those safely for FEMA and get that data back to them immediately and speed aid and other things out to Gulf Coast victims of that hurricane. So when the pandemic started, it was evident to us immediately that there might be opportunities for delivery drones to be involved. There are all kinds of disaster response situations, but especially if you need to move things to people that are socially distanced or that are rural and don't have quick access. Otherwise, drones are a great tool for that. So we were already working on a research program with OSU to use our system to fly drones long distances. And we've been doing that with them for several months. It's supported by OCAST here in Oklahoma, which we're excited about. And they, particularly last week, brought their delivery drone for those tests with Dr. Kumar's packaging system, which you'll see in the video. And we were able to track that drone, track surrounding aircraft using the sensors that we use, and you'll see some of that in the video as well, and provide safety for that. And so I'll talk a little further later on about some of the things that we're doing practically right now to get this technology out into the field and in use with some drone operators who are trying to respond immediately. So there's really interesting stuff going on.
Okay. Well, and I want to show the video. I'll show that, but I want to hear from Peter first. So Peter, what was the moment that you made the decision that we have an application that could be of help, and how were you able to really turn on a dime and pivot so quickly into the relief efforts?
So, we were literally about to release the product in March for control mechanisms for, roadside flaggers and taking folks out of harm's way for different applications for this controlled access point. So the planned launch was actually, towards the latter part of March, and we all know what unfolded, around the middle. So sat with the team, we had a brainstorming session before social distancing was enforced, and had a chat about, the different products that are out there that this particular product, the Mobile Sentinel, could actually, be adapted and perform the functions of taking those first contact points with human to human contact and actually looking at, temporal or EBT, the external body temperature, and the looking at facial recognition, etc. So taking that first responder or that first point of contact away from that human to human interaction and talking literally, talking to the machine to get in contact inside the facility, etc. So that was, that was a pretty quick turn for us. And then my engineering staff quickly, went out to the market, and we've teamed up with some folks, to provide the hardware that meets the requirements and to the standards that have come out of the CDC for EBT and different things like that. So again, our product was for a purpose that we're truly passionate about, which was removing folks off the sides of roads and controlled access and different things. And then we looked at large lines of people going through drive-throughs and different things with that person-to-person touch, and we figured, hey, we can adapt this thing pretty quickly, and it's truly remarkable how quick we were able to turn this commercialized product that we had help with from the state of Virginia through CIT and others. We commercialized this product, and now we're on the release plan now with this application. So that's in a nutshell how we pivoted quickly on that.
That's great. That's great. Well, so Crayley, I'm just going to show the video of the testing, because I do want to get into some of the testing, because you both talked about it a little bit, that in some ways you were close to use in the market, but in other ways there are still some barriers to wide use, to using these technologies widely. And obviously they want to be able to use these technologies quickly and as widely as they can right away within safety regulations from CDC, from FAA. So those are, it sound like, some of the challenges. So you were able to get out to a test site to, try to push this forward as quickly as possible. So, I'll cue up the video here, and Crayley, you can talk us through it. The video does not have any audio, so you can tell us a little bit about what we're looking at. And this was, a few weeks ago when people were quarantined, but you guys safely had an opportunity to test this, which is, this is what is required. This is something that is indispensable.
Thanks, Amanda. Yes, so this is just a minute of video. It'll go by pretty fast. This was on April 16th. We worked with Oklahoma State University and the Unmanned Systems Research Institute and the team there to support them in providing our detect and avoid and airspace management system to allow them to fly this special customized drone that contains this temperature-controlled payload from Max-Q. This is a vertical takeoff and landing aircraft that is a fixed-wing aircraft to fly quickly and efficiently over long distances. We have done extensive beyond visual line of sight testing with OSU because they have an FAA certificate of authorization for this type of testing. And we're using our system that detects manned aircraft using radar, using their transponders, and also using signals directly from the autopilots on the one or more unmanned aircraft that would be involved in these types of flights. And the idea was to be able to demonstrate that you can safely do this, that you can do it with this particular aircraft that's really specialized for this purpose, and to document that. And as a result of this, there actually has been a lot of attention, both on our activities and a lot of companies that are trying to get delivery drones like this into the field quickly. And we've been approached by several groups. We've been approached by testing labs. We've been approached by rural communities that do have populations that could make use of a high-speed delivery to a rural location, farms and ranches particularly. And then we're also right now negotiating joining a coalition of operators who have 3 major applications that they're trying to implement across the United States. And we would provide our airspace management system to them. They're looking at being able to use drones for spraying. So drones with disinfectant that would be able to reach areas quickly, spray a large area quickly. Drones that would be doing observations around body temperature, like Peter talked about. And then drones that would be doing delivery. And that's probably the most complex of those applications, and the one that probably holds the most promise. So we're very excited about that.
Great. So Peter, you guys were pretty close to market already. You had some a use case, but this obviously turned into a more important use case. Is this used widely today? What do you see for the future? I mean, is this something that is limited today, but maybe in a year, and then it will be used for future relief efforts, you know, going forward? Where is your technology today, and how widely is it going to be used, and kind of what are your next steps?
So we were at product release. So again, you know, we've built 3 of these systems for a particular client that we have, and they're in use, you know, around probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 months a year. But this commercialization piece took us to the next level about removing some of the clunks and things that we found. This thing can be used, you know, pretty much anywhere in any sort of application. And you know, we've teamed up with Silvus Technologies, a radio provider, that I'm sure that, you know, the folks out there listening and the panel are pretty familiar with. So, you know, there is a way here, you know, to mesh all of these things together. So in an environment such as a hurricane or whenever, you know, something's gone through, you know, these systems could be set up to actually, you know, start to provide voice over IP, you know, transmitting data around till things, you know, start to come back up and infrastructure is rebuilt. So, you know, the applications for this thing are pretty much up to the imagination of the end user. Where do I see it going? I see that the fact of person-to-person contact at health centers and those other places are going to be reduced greatly as we continue to evolve and understand what is happening and what the new normal is. And I can see, you know, these types of systems being applied to literally most government, you know, facilities that want to see who's coming in and who's going out, and want to understand, you know, the attributes of the external health of the person, you know, so that there is a trigger or a flag there if there is concern. So we didn't build this for COVID. We built this as a product for what we saw as an upcoming safety, you know, tool to get folks out of harm's way, especially on highways, construction sites, different things like that. But as we pivoted, you know, to this, then, you know, that's where we've ended up, but not limited to that. But the fact that this thing can, you know, create ad hoc networks wherever it's placed and talk to, you know, the UAS and you know, maybe be a data recipient to, you know, to extend, you know, what folks are doing, is really the core of this technology. And I have a lot of smarter people around me than myself. They've just been brilliant how they've put this thing together, and the applications are pretty much to the imagination. It's not about the box. It's about what the componentry and what the core of the system is and allows you to do. So, you know, sporting events, you know, mass things like that, where you want to, you know, not survey, not to upend privacy, but you want to have a look at, you know, what the surrounding scenarios are. This tool would be ideal for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's amazing. I think about how these technologies maybe are the timeline is shortened when something like this happening, where you need an immediate response and you need immediate tools like what you guys are offering. And so, you know, Crately and Saravan, you guys are doing some testing. Have you seen that, you know, I don't think we can have this conversation without talking about rules and regulations. Is FAA willing to expedite waivers or expedite things or make certain allowances to allow you to push this testing along maybe more quickly than it would have been in normal circumstances? Did you run into any of that?
So Amanda, I'll try and address that a little bit. So one of the reasons that we were approached by and are negotiating to join a coalition of operators is that they have the boots on the ground, they have the aircraft, and are at the cutting edge of working with these types of regulations. So as a company, we follow the beyond visual line of sight regulations, particularly around something called Part 107, which a lot of your viewers are probably familiar with. That's the rules that allow for commercial drones to fly in the United States. There's smaller drones under 55 pounds, under 400 feet in altitude. And those are the typical drones that everyone's looking at right now for doing this type of commercial work. And there are waivers to the regulations that require those drones to fly within the visual line of sight of the pilot. And so that's a big restriction when you're trying to deliver things. And you can do a lot within the visual line of sight of the pilot. But as you get beyond that, the FAA wants you to have additional safety, and the ability to see and avoid other aircraft is a requirement. And so we're going to be working with the service providers who have the expertise in operating the aircraft, who have the trained personnel and the pilots to help them pursue specialized waivers and permissions to begin to do some of this type of delivery, observation, and disinfectant work over much larger areas. So we'll see how that goes. We have seen in the past, as our experience in Hurricane Harvey and in Houston demonstrated, the FAA granted 5 emergency waivers in that case. They were emergency certificates of authorization to fly under a TFR. So the whole area was covered by a flight restriction. But the FAA, in a matter of just a few hours, granted those 5 COAs. And so we do expect that there will be strong interest for very specific operations in specific places to provide very specific types of relief. And so we're going to be exploring that.
So just to add to that, like, you know, we as a packaging company, our view is more on the commercialization side of things, on what the life science industry as a whole is looking at. So in the last 3 or 4 weeks since we started doing this work and then started communicating about the collaboration and what we're trying to do with integrating thermal packaging on a drone platform and transport, we are getting a lot of inbound. There is a lot of interest among hospitals, among blood centers, among diagnostic labs, and even pharmaceutical companies that are interested in solving this complex last mile delivery challenges. And to us, it's amazing how you know, just doing these type of demonstrations and collaborations, it spurs up interest in the market sector. And obviously, you know, we are not experts in FAA regulations, and that's where Vigilant Aerospace currently and OSU's collaboration comes in for us. Is okay, how do we? There's this amazing interest building up in the real world. How do we bridge this, and how do we take this and safely deploy these platforms while complying to all the FAA regulations?
Peter, so you said you were working also with the CDC. Did you run into anything specific interventions there, or were you dealing with FAA? Were you dealing with other regulatory agencies?
Sorry, who was that to, Amanda?
Yeah, I was just asking about some of the other regulatory agencies that you were working with. You had mentioned CDC and following some regulations, and
we're just looking at the guidelines of what the temporal definitions needed to be for, you know, for the EBT stuff. So not working directly with them. I will point out to the group though, as this is more around the UAS stuff, that that the FAA just did release the remote identification participant. So that would be very interesting for the group as well.
that is definitely a challenging topic to tackle. Well, we do have, I don't know if this is necessarily related to the remote ID, but we do have some questions. Somebody is asking, you know, Part 135 is important in the quest when moving cargo, and they wanted to talk a little bit about 135. What do you know about that? What's your take on that?
Amanda, do you want me to address that?
Sure, yeah, we could take turns or any information you all have.
So I'll talk just a little bit about that. That's a very interesting question. So there are 3 different sets of regulations under which you could potentially fly an unmanned aircraft, the commercial unmanned aircraft, as you begin to move cargo. There's Part 107, which is the existing small UAS rule. There's Part 91, and there's Part 135. Several companies are pursuing Part 135 to get themselves classified as air carriers. To follow all of those rules requires a lot of waivers, requires a lot of work with the FAA, and there are a few organizations that are going through that process and are beginning to do deliveries on an experimental basis under Part 135. That's really exciting for the industry. Something I didn't mention, we have a contract with the FAA to do testing of our detect and avoid system and radars with the UAS test site in Alaska. We're part of the Alaska's FAA Integration Pilot Program team and have worked with them, and we'll be doing additional work directly for the FAA's UAS Integration Office to try and provide additional technology, data, and knowledge about how to do this safely. And provide that directly to that office and then to industry. And so we're excited about that as an opportunity to advance the regulations for everyone and have fewer of a waiver-driven process and more of a regulation-driven process, which is going to be important for the industry to grow. So that's something that we're directly involved with. We are not a Part 135 carrier, but we do expect that we will be working with some of those, particularly as we do that R&D work. And we're excited, very excited to see that, because that's going to make delivery more of a regular process, not something that's just exceptional, just performed in a single location, something that can really expand.
Thank you for that, I appreciate it. Well, so we showed a little video of some of the work that you're doing, and we've also got some information from Peter that kind of illustrates the technology, which I think will be helpful to understand a little bit more about what you're doing in these relief areas. So I'm just going to bring this up for you, and you can talk us through. Let's see, full screen. There you go. If you can talk us through this, Peter, tell us a little bit about how the technology works. It's always good to see some visuals.
Yeah, so you know, what we have is a mobile compact gate, fits behind any, you know, pickup or car or anything like that, fully contained, solar powered generation. We have large, you know, gel cells inside, your standard stop go lights, and then, you know, a 360 camera pan and zoom capability. And then the gate is actually, you know, on a slide there. So, you know, as we designed this for roadworks, etc., it was made that you could actually slide the gate from one side to another. But as we, you know, pivoted with, you know, with COVID, I'll get you to go to the next slide, thanks. Then we noticed these other, you know, these other applications. So, you know, right now you will drive up to a, you know, to a tent or a, you know, a semi-permanent facility. You'll be questioned there, etc. They'll ask you to, you know, take your temperature, different things like that. And what the team came up with was the fact that, you know, we'd be able to, you know, plug into any sort of database that the hospital or anything has, as this antibody, you know, as these, you know, this database becomes, you know, bigger and thicker, once the you know, the pandemic is over, you know, you'll be slewed into a database that'll tell, you know, folks, just from, I suppose, from showing your license or whatever, you know, of the antibody verification size, you know, side of it. Data collection, again, you know, slewing to what, you know, what vehicle, you know, number plate recognition, and then the fever detection, you know, side of it, to take the temperatures, you know, remotely. And that's what we're trying to do, and doing this over, you know, 4G, 5G networks is another possibility, just not with Silvus. We're looking at integrating just into normal, into normal 4G, 5G networks, so that it doesn't have to rely on those other types of packets. The Silvus was chosen because of multinodal requirements that some of our customers have asked for. And then the final slide, just to show you, is the system itself. Completely portable. A very small footprint. The boom and all of the components actually pack up, slide in under the trailer. So you're deploying this thing in less than a couple of minutes, setting it up, and then being able to operate remotely from inside a safe area. So trying to remove that that person to person on first contact environment for our first responders and for folks fighting the good fight that's out there at the moment. So we believe that there's a lot of applicability. Again, we are a UAS company by trade, but we were asked by an agency to develop this type of system, and this is the commercialization part of it that we're pretty proud of. And I'm extremely impressed at this went from a napkin design to delivery, inside of for the first prototype. My team pulled this together in 11 days from inception to first prototype delivery. So that is, a picture paints 1,000 words. We painted it orange, obviously for the market that we're targeting, which you will see on the side of roads, etc. But this is a pretty interesting tool. And having been around, the unmanned sector for a while now, just the ability of the team to quickly flip and maneuver to seeing if something there is real to support this thing as it rolls out to market, and we believe we're onto something. So thank you for showing the slides.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's visuals are always helpful, and learn more about it. And I think it ties into one of the questions that have popped up earlier. One of the questions were, how has this changed your business? So you guys were probably going along and had your plans and timelines of things that you were going to work on, and then you were able to pivot so quickly. So what for your business has this changed? I mean, the landscape of business has changed in the last 30 to 45 days, but how is it specifically in the UAS industry, and for a company like yours, what kind of changes have you seen? So O'Crately and Saravan, we can start with you guys. I mean, you guys have been working together. So obviously, and on the upside, this has created a wonderful partnership, but what other things have you seen with your businesses respectively?
So we were in a position of having a distributed workforce. We have software developers in several locations, and so we were in a very good position to respond and continue doing our work. That just happens to be the nature of a lot of modern software development, is you do have a lot of online management of that process, online management of your development process. But then when we go and test, obviously we do that in person. And so we had to be really careful. We had to follow the rules that OSU in this case has about their staff and their faculty and how you use the facilities and things like that. So we've been very fortunate in that we as a company were already very distributed. And so that's been fine for us. But obviously we have all of the same difficulties that every other small business has right now, in terms of making sure that everybody stays well, everybody stays safe, and maintaining communications and maintaining access to equipment and stuff like that. That really, for us, that's been the big deal, is not having the ability to just pass equipment around and get what you need off the store shelf or mail order to build a new unit or do whatever you need to do. So we confront all the same issues that a lot of small businesses confront, but we happen to be in a good position with a distributed team to start with.
For us, it's been we're a hardware manufacturing company, so we make and sell these packages in-house. So our manufacturing operation, the first week or so, we're completely disoriented, trying to figure out how are we going to run this thing while keeping our employees safe. So we probably developed and implemented procedures that typically it takes about a year amount of work. We did it all in 1 week. So we went about, let's list out, we're an essential manufacturer providing an essential product to both the to the frontline labs that are doing the testing and also the hospital that are taking care of the patients. So we had to preserve some of our core functionalities to be able to support those operations. So we methodically went through the entire company, isolated those that are core functions that are completely essential. And then we broke our team into 2 halves, part A teams and B teams for those. So that about a week or so, I would say we were super disoriented, but now I think we've got a handle on things. So even as we safely open up, we're continuing to have those procedures in place until we are, until we can return to some sort of a normal, until we can understand what the spread of the disease looks like. And at the crux of it, we are an innovative company, and the entire team is built around this thought process of continue to look for challenges. How can we help our hospitals? How can we help our customers safely move these life-saving treatments? And early on, as we realized, if we got something that can help the situation, our R&D spun up really fast. So we took our packaging solutions, again, stuff that we're building for that can keep products safe for 5 days to 7 days. And then how do we take those things and then make those fit for specimen transport, intra-city transport? How do we support these remote test sites? So we launched 17 different solutions in a span of 2 or 3 weeks. And I think that was a phenomenal rate at which we did it. And one of the projects was actually this drone integration. So how do we take this and then go work with OSU to make it happen? So I think that was a major change. I'd be lying if I said we have full control on this right now, because I think we're still learning. Every day is a new challenge. So it really helps to have a dedicated team that just focuses on, hey, let's look at one challenge at a time, one problem at a time, and then continue to solve those challenges. So I think we're still on the cusp of breaking free, but hopefully in the next couple of weeks we'll be 100% back to normal.
That's great. Yeah, talk about an accelerated timeline. I mean, so Peter, you talked a little bit about that. You guys were preparing to launch, but probably not quite in this way, or maybe as quickly. You always want everything to be just perfect, but these times have not allowed us to do that. So what changes in your business have you seen in response to this?
Yeah, so we've done a number of things internally. So everyone working remotely, not coming into the office, etc., has allowed a dynamic and pretty interesting environment for folks to explore new work behavioral habits and different things like that. And with that came the folks looking for opportunities. My team looking for opportunities to assist in what's going out there, as well as continuing on with the with the finalization of this product. But we're now diversified our 3D printers, etc., at home with our engineering folks, and they're now printing parts for companies that have approached us to help with printing parts for 3D for masks and different things like that. So we've been able to, adjust to assist, in what, resources we have. So, the unknown of, when this will, move on, and we turn back to some sort of normality, is the interesting part of how do we, migrate back to what that looks like. But we've diverted, and we're using our assets to assist out there with with different projects as we're approached, and that's what we're using a lot of our horsepower on now, is is helping with 3D printing parts and different things for for these first responders and the community. So I think it's brought a lot together for one cause, which has been really good. And then, you know, coming from the drone industry, I'll just put my other hat on. I think that this is a turning point for the industry in how we access airspace, and these tools now, you know, aren't as hard to, you know, be soluble to the community, because they can see the good without, you know, with the drone coming and delivering, you know, versus the thought of the drone watching everything and doing that. There's a useful purpose that's coming to fruition, I believe, you know, for the industry with this difficult opportunity. So, you know, that's where I come from the, you know, from an industry UAS side.
Amanda, you're muted.
Thank you greatly. I just wanted to take a few minutes. We are getting some questions. I won't ask all of them, but one of them was kind of a technical question. I think, Peter, this could be for you. The temperature or fever of a person, can it be measured directly by a drone, or is it required to have a fever monitor or thermometer at the person, in the person's possession? In other words, is a thermometer built into the drone? That was one of the technical questions we received.
So I'd probably defer to, you know, the other folks on that if they're looking at any of that, but understanding, you know, the payloads and sensors that are out there, you know, I think that there are going to be a number of hurdles to making sure that the temperatures are accurate from a remote sensing point of a drone or something like that. I don't know what the standoffs need to be, and again, it's out of my area of expertise, but having worked with, you know, infrared and different cameras over the period, you know, there's a very infinite threshold that these sensors would need to be calibrated to, and I really don't know, without further investigation, the true answer to that, you know, to meet, you know, the stringent guidelines that folks are doing. And I'm seeing a lot of media that there are folks out there saying, yes, it can be done, but I haven't spent any horsepower or time on truly understanding what that is and where that is at the moment. So I suppose that's a pretty politically benign answer, but I haven't investigated a whole lot.
No, we appreciate that. Any parting thoughts that you want to leave us with? I mean, this has been a really phenomenal experience for the world, but as a company that's able to really make a difference, and that you've been able to pivot so quickly, which I know as a small business or even a large business is phenomenal. Anything that we didn't talk about today that you would want to leave our audience with? Greatly, Saravan, we can start with you guys. As you know, you've been, what's next? You know, you've done some testing. This will hopefully be in use, in wide use as soon as possible. What's next for you guys, or what would you leave our community with?
Well, you know, in general, it's a great time. You know, whenever we get struck with emergency situations like a tornado situation or a hurricane or a pandemic like this, you know, it's amazing how a lot of these technologies can be pulled together to create a positive impact, to have a positive influence on things. It also provides an opportunity to try these things out. You know, again, in a much accelerated fashion compared to what we would do in a regular time frame. So to me, it's like it's a, you know, we can create these positive impacts, but we have to continue investing in capitalizing on these times to do these demonstrations. I'm sure Cradley has probably a better vantage point on how it impacts the UAS industry as is, which is a revolving industry. But from my vantage point, it's a great time to kind of like bring these technologies together and try and see how quickly we can validate some things and then how quickly we can implement some things.
Yeah, Amanda, I see it as a situation in which there are needs that need to be met, and that creates a need to accelerate the types of waivers and permissions that unmanned aircraft need in order to help meet those immediate problems and provide solutions. So that's what we were focused on. One of the questions that I saw that I think is a good general question is what's been the response of the staff, partners, and investors to our respective pivots. The response has been overwhelmingly positive. And I'll give you a couple of examples. The staff and the partners that we have all been very interested in finding ways to apply all of these technologies and systems to solving specific real-world problems. With these partners at OSU and with MaxQ and others, that's very evident. Everybody came together quickly and put systems together, and we were able to demonstrate that and then show that demonstration to people who might be able to use it on a broader basis. So I'm very pleased about that. I'll also say that we've seen specific investor groups, including groups that have already invested in our company, that are hosting meetings in which they are soliciting pitches and asking startup companies with innovative technologies how they can help respond to the pandemic. Because investors want to be involved. They want to provide support both for companies that they've already invested in and new companies that might have promising technologies. And so that's been really interesting to see an investor community respond that way. And I've seen that a couple of times in the last few weeks. And the staff of our company, and I'm sure many companies that are working on innovative technologies, have been really enthusiastic to try and use them in creative ways to solve problems. So that's been very encouraging to see the innovation and the startup community respond really quickly.
It's good. It's nice to get that investor insight. Peter, any parting thoughts, or what have you seen among your team or the industry in general?
I've seen resilience, and adaptation. The human spirit's a wonderful thing. So, we're very good at adapting to, to changing environments that I've seen, even, in our local communities. So it takes time, but, it does occur. And as I say, I think for this industry, there's an opportunity for, the good drone versus the perception drone. So this tool is pretty powerful when it's used in times of good like this. And I take my hat off to the other folks on the call for for being involved and pushing the envelope, especially with the regulatory environment that we live in. At the moment, I see there may be a crack in the door to, pushing this thing a little bit harder. I know all the advocacy groups, AEVSI and all the likes are, continuing along those lines. So, with this comes opportunity, and I think, the entrepreneurs and the smalls out there that are pivoting, show just how strong and communal the small business community is. We can pivot quickly. We are seen as a valuable resource by the larger, folks out there because of our ability to maneuver without the bureaucratic, processes in place as a small. So they're my closing comments for you all.
I appreciate that. I think someone said it earlier. I mean, this technology is always so fascinating because we're really only limited by our imaginations. And so when things like this happen, it's incredible, the imagination of these incredibly smart people like yourselves out there who are responding to these. So I really appreciate you all taking the time today. I know you're super busy to talk about what you're doing. And we are going to continue with this webinar series and continue to spotlight companies that are doing work in COVID relief areas. So we are just incredibly thankful that you are willing to take some time out to talk about all the exciting things you're doing. And we hope to see you all at the Tech Forum. So I know that many of you have attended before, and hope that you plan to attend again this year in Oklahoma City. And again, we encourage anybody who's listening, you're probably already signed up, but if you haven't done so, please make sure that you sign up for our newsletter, and you can go to our homepage and you can subscribe to our newsletter, and that will give you all the updates on future webinars like this, and also the tech forum. So again, thank you so much, Peter, Crately, Saravan. Just congratulations, and I really look forward to hearing all of the future successes that you guys are going to have. So this is really exciting for all of us to hear about. We do have some other questions that we didn't get a chance to get to, so I will try to connect you with those who had questions if I can, and we'll make this webinar available for anyone who wants to listen to it again or didn't get a chance to listen to it live. So thank you all so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Amanda.
Thank you, Amanda.
Take care.